Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's Tech Bites. This is a very special episode because we're doing all demo of Veeam Backup for Entra ID. My name is Kirsten Stoner, and I'm sitting here in Columbus, Ohio, the home of the College National Football Champions. Go Buckeyes! I had to throw that out there because, as an Ohioan, we don't get that much, but we have to call it out just in case. And I'm here with Rick Vanover. Rick, go ahead and say hi to everybody.
Yeah, hello everyone. And by the way, we're already getting the comments about the football game. Steve is tuned in also from Ohio, which is a good note. I'm tuned into LinkedIn here, so I'm watching myself right here. It's kind of weird, but that's what I do, but I can see the comments. Let us know where you're from. We're live on several platforms here today. I can't even remember. Our producers do such a great job. We've got one producer here coming at you from the Barn Cave in Ohio, and another producer rocking it out of the DFW Metroplex, but couldn't do it without them. But let us know where you're tuning in from. I see we got Randy Lee coming in from the colder great state of Wisconsin, but we are rocking it here today, Kirsten. And you're right, we're going to talk about the newest protected workload service application. What is it that we're going to talk about?
We're going to talk about Entra ID. And also, how would you describe Entra ID? Would you describe it as a service? Would you describe it as a workload? Would you describe it as an application? Feel free to put that in the comments as well, because me and Rick were actually just talking about this earlier, and I'm thinking I would describe it as a cloud service, right?
Well, it's an identity and access management service offered by Microsoft. A lot of us use it and don't know it. Anytime you have a single sign-on or anytime you log into like M365 for most environments, they're going to use Entra. And then you also have registrations to any of your apps that go into it. And it used to be called Azure Active Directory, and it has synchronization capabilities to on-premises Active Directory, but it is the thing, and it is the newest protected workload service application. Let's just go with service from Veeam. I'm looking at the comments. We've got great tune-ins here. We've got Minnesota, Argentina, Sweden, California, Turkey. Let us know where you're tuning in from. We will be doing the map ahead of time and actually calling an audible here to the Barn Cave. Can we load the map real quick? The starter map. I don't know if it's ready, but we have our producers in Ohio and Texas. We're already lighting up Minnesota because we're going to, or Wisconsin because we're coming back to Randy Lee. And we have an honorary light up here today for Romania. And Kirsten, do you want to tell them why?
Well, in reality, me and Rick were supposed to be in Romania this week, so that's why this is also a very special Tech Bites episode because we weren't going to have one because we were going to be in Romania. And unfortunately, due to the cold weather that we're having and the snow, our flight got canceled. So we missed out on seeing all of our colleagues abroad in Europe. And I don't know if they missed us as much as we missed them. What do you think, Rick?
Well, it wasn't canceled. It was just 4 hours late, and we missed the last flight to Europe, and so it became not practical to do the trip. But that's why this is kind of a spontaneous episode. Trust me, Kirsten and I practiced all week for this. Not really, but we're going to jump into it. So I did offer to throw myself up under the bus, and so I'm going to walk us through the Entra ID Admin Center because I think that's an important part of the story, a good place to start. So if you are a traditional admin, you probably spent some time here using Entra ID. This is our lab. And if I look at some of our different users, just take a look here in our environment. I will say it's a lab, so it is not as big, not as enterprisey. Oh, we do have people from Bucharest. Yo, Safioma, I'll give you a like for that. They're watching us there in the conference room. That's beautiful. Anyways, back to your regularly scheduled program. This is our lab. You might recognize some of the names of the different people on our team. There's me, there's Kirsten. We're all in here. This is what we use for our lab usage, right? And this is where, if you're provisioning identity for your organization, this is how you do that. I will say we have one victim account we like to pick on, and let's pick on Violet Vanguard here. So Violet Vanguard is an account that we use for a lot of our demos. Okay, so I'm going to do something here What do you recommend I do, Kirsten? Change. Let me give you a menu, actually. Let's, how about like changing the name? You think that's a good idea? Good something to
Yeah,
break?
let's change some things around. Let's change the name. What if we change the user type?
Um,
Is that
well,
possible?
that might break it as well. But let's just do this. Let's because I know exactly how this works. I'm going to change the name from Violet to Violent. Okay. So I'm going to do a data change here, and this is going to come back and make sense to us here in a second. So this is a user. Okay. So we'll come back to that. Now, this is my Entra ID environment. I've made a change, but where I think I really want to start the conversation is in Veeam backup and replication. Now, this is part of Veeam Data Platform. Do want to highlight that I'm using 12.3.new. This is the latest version of Veeam backup and replication. And one of the key capabilities that come with 12.3 is the ability to protect Entra ID. And after you do your upgrade, you'll get this message that, hey, Veeam now supports Entra ID. And if you go into your inventory of your environment here, if you look just at that inventory section, you'll see there's a new section or a new protected data source, I guess would be the first word that comes to my mind, called Microsoft Entra ID. Now, the inventory is the collection of things we're protecting. And just to close the loop in Veeam terms, the backup infrastructure are the things we use to get that done. Okay, so your backup infrastructure does the work of your Veeam server, proxies, places it goes, repositories, things like that. The inventory is what we're protecting. Entra ID in the blue box is the new one, right? So I already have one set up, but I do want to highlight I can add another Entra ID tenant. Okay, so an Entra ID tenant is your Entra ID domain, identity, tenant is the word. Domain is just kind of what a lot of people like to say. Now, if you want to add one, in this case, I can add a second. You know, if I think about an additional lab, right now I don't have a second. But what I really like, and this is actually new in case any of you played with the beta, it tells you exactly where to go to get it, which is really cool. This little line right here, it tells you in Entra Admin Center where to go to get this. So you just go to entra.microsoft.com, go into Identity, Overview Properties, and you'll find the tenant ID, which is a kind of a string-like entry. Now I'm going to briefly show you the one that I already have set up here. And basically, you'll have to create an application to do that. Now you can have Veeam do it, or you can use one that's already there. In this case, I made a new one. And if you've ever used a device authorization where you have to put in that little code with device login, that's the next step here. Trust me, friends, this is super easy. And I didn't even use the user guide when I did this for the setup just yesterday, because again, this was kind of a spontaneous show. I needed to upgrade the lab and do these new setups anyways. So it's really easy to do once you have that in there. Now, when we have a tenant in the inventory for Veeam, we can start backing it up. Now, I'm going to clear this. This is a kind of a clean view because I have my two Entra ID jobs, right? Entra ID backup and then the audit logs, two separate jobs. What I want to highlight here is I've done a search for Entra. I'm going to clear this out and you're going to be like, holy buckets, there's a lot of stuff going on. Well, you know what? Veeam protects a lot of stuff now. So this particular server, I've got physical servers. I got Hyper-V, I got Proxmox, I got Linux agents, I got Windows agents, I've got VMware, I've got all kinds of stuff going on. So in order to keep this a little bit cleaner for everyone, I decided to just search for Entra. Now, I'm going to stop myself here, Kirsten, and I'm just going to ask you any questions or comments, or did I forget any parts of the script so far? Anything on your side that you want to ask me about what I've done so far?
Yeah, sure. So you added the tenant organization into Veeam Backup and Replication. So within the Entra ID admin center, does it show anything like the Veeam's been connected to that center or any other things that people could just verify that, it's been added correctly?
Yeah, that's a really good one. And I want to draw your attention to the logins, right? So one of the things I like in the Entra ID, I'll just go back because I was there a second ago, is looking at the sign-in events. Okay. Now I know that it was me signing in, and if you as an Entra user don't use this sign-in events log, this is kind of really helpful. I can tell you, just since we did before game time, I see AZ on our team is logging in for something. So the good thing is I didn't mess up his account. The Violet Vanguard, that's our test victim. But I can see AZ is using this account as well. He lives in Germany, but he must be coming in through at least internet terms in Munich. I can see there's a couple of, failed authorizations as well. Like here's one failure for Corinne on our team. I have to let her know about that. Sophia's watching. Hey, Sophia, in the conference room, tell Corinne her account is getting some bad logins from Rochester, New York. What's up? But Kirsten, I would go there and start looking at some of the login events. Really good point. Now, I'm probably also not doing myself a favor in the fact that I'm using my personal identity. One of the best practices is a service account. So I'll probably sort that out at some point. But really, the next stop is to make a job here. So let's take a look at making the backup job. Now, this is pretty straightforward here. Name of the backup job, which tenant, and a schedule. It's actually a pretty straightforward set, but let's walk through it real quick. So I've given it a name. And then it's going to ask me which tenant am I backing up. And so I'm backing up the aperturelabs.biz tenant, which is the one that contains the Violet Vanguard user that I just broke. Change the name. You have the option to retain by days. The default, I think, was 7. I upped it to 28. You have some other options here on encryption and notifications. Probably a good idea to do that. Let's do the email notifications. Actually, I'm not 100% sure that this one has email notifications set up, but that is where you do it. And then when it comes to schedule, this is an area that, I've talked to a lot of people, and I'm not really sure what the best practice is here. I'm going with 6 hours. It's going to be my recommendation for most environments. Let me know what you think is a reasonable protection schedule. I think it has to be more often than 24 hours, which is probably something at a minimum I use for image-based backups. But if you think about all the app registrations, all the users, and all the other things that go on, I'm thinking more frequent. Let me know in the streams. I'm watching LinkedIn. Felicia does a really good job of relaying those through to me. And I'm curious, what are you doing? If any of you are early adopters, I see 2 people, Randy, Steve, some of our pre-sales technical folk. What are your customers doing? I'll elevate that up. I'd love to share some of the early best practices that are coming out of the field. I'm throwing out 6, but we'll see what the rest of the market is doing. And then that's it. Now, Kirsten, this is a trick question. I didn't really tell you, but I want you to tell me, Kirsten, what do you think was missing from this backup job? Like, it feels really familiar. It's a different workload, but something was missing. Did you catch anything that was missing when I made that backup job?
Well, I have a couple things I'm curious about, but I'm going to go for my first thing is honestly, Rick, I'm surprised you didn't use encryption for this. I mean, we got to make sure that we're securing our data, whether it's in the cloud or on premises. And then the second thing is that you didn't choose a backup repository. But is there something different with the backup repository compared to, other workloads?
That's a good question here. So this is one of the things that a lot of organizations may notice. So I'm just looking at my Entra ID backup jobs here, okay? And let me kind of condense this a little bit just so you can see it all. So for an Entra ID tenant backup, and if you go look in your view here, you'll see target or repository is omitted. And in this situation, you might think, is that a bug? Where is it going? It's really important to let everybody know that this type of backup actually goes to the internal Postgres database, right? Now, this is different for Veeam backup and replication, but it also is part of our journey to provide higher performant database activities. There's some other things, especially in some of the other products that we're doing. We're going to see more around Postgres, especially if you go into version 13 for some of our upcoming things. So you don't actually choose the repository, but I will say that the Entra ID backup goes into the Postgres database. Now that's a perfect segue, Kirsten, to the other type of backup job that we can do, which is an audit log backup. So I want to walk you through this one real quick, and your eyes do not deceive you. This one does have the option for a storage target. So in here, I'm giving it a name, my 31st job, Entra ID audit logs. What tenant? The same one. What storage? Now I'm putting this backup of the audit logs of Entra ID into Veeam Data Cloud Vault, which is Veeam Backup Storage as a Service. Really loving this. It's been really successful across the market. If you're not, sure if you have enough immutability, this is a great way to do it. And then secondly, if you're coming up on a refresh for your backup storage, definitely check out Veeam Data Cloud Vault. And I made the retention policy match what I'm doing for the tenant backup. Okay, so that's just a consistency element here. Now, Kirsten, I did not let you down, but when it comes to the storage, I have encrypted this backup data going into Vault, especially because those audit logs are going off-site. I have a phrase, encrypt your data in the cloud, or someone else will do it for you. Kirsten, I'm going to call you out, but we have a couple of different lab passwords. This is a lab, but I did ask Kirsten, what the heck was that?
She said it's a secret that I'm keeping between me and there's only one other person who's watching this call who might know the answer to that.
And I just thought that was awesome. We got to give you a shout out there, Kirsty. That's awesome. Rock on. So anyways, I am encrypting this backup data going into Vault, and I have a schedule, and I have paired this backup job to run right after the actual tenant job. So if you look right here, you can see that it runs right after the actual tenant job that goes to the Postgres database. So that's how you do it. Now, Kirsten, I know you've been with me for a long time. I have a lot of sayings, right? One-liners, phrases, Rickisms, things like that. The backup's good, but now what?
Well, a backup is only as good as its ability to recover, right? So the worst case scenario is you think you're backing up successfully and then you go to restore and something's wrong, you can't restore, or even worse, like maybe you've never practiced that recovery option in your data center. So it's important to, make sure that you can recover.
Yep, indeed. Backup for show, recover for dough. So again, I'm going to go back in here to Entra ID Admin Center. You'll see that I have the name change from Violet to Violent. And just a reminder also, when we look at all the different users, I'm going to pick on myself, for example, like when we back things up, we're backing up kind of some important things like application registrations. Now, again, this is a lab, but I do have two app registrations, one for what I'm doing for Veeam Data Cloud and the other what I'm doing for Veeam Backup for Microsoft Azure. Those are backed up. So this is cool stuff. All right, back to your regularly scheduled programming. So going in here, I got word from the producer that the map is ready. So I'm going to launch the Entra ID while we do that. And we got Canada. We got Minnesota, even though I misspoke. We got California. We got Tennessee. Welcome, everyone. And a couple more people from some of the others. We got, oh, but goodness, Sweden, I guessed right. We got Turkey, and we actually do have Romania. So thank you, Safiomo and team. We also have Argentina and Brazil. Big welcome, everyone. And Saudi, if I didn't say it, I don't know if I said Saudi. There it is. There it is. Okay, cool. All right, appreciate it. I love that application. It's always a lot of fun. All right, let's do the Entra ID backup. And let me just show you where it sits. It sits on the drop down here. Restore this way. Now, it's funny. Emily on my team, she gave me a little crap. She's like, I don't know, can we say that on these live streams? She gave me feedback and she said, Rick, you drive recoveries way different than I do. She likes to go over here and do it this way, but you can do it either way. You can launch it from the disk inventory, the cloud inventory, or the dropdown. Let's either way get to the same place. But it's got the pretty little Entra ID logo, so let's do it. Now, the first thing I'm going to tell you, if you have never seen this, is let me see if I can get this kind of centered here. And this is like, it's like an embedded web technology. This is not the Veeam Explorer. If you've seen the Veeam Explorer, this is different. Okay, so I just want to highlight that it's a different engine. And let's go down and you'll see that Violet right here is not yet Violent, she's Violet. So let's take a look here. And this is probably, Kirsten, my favorite thing about this implementation, this metadata comparison. The metadata comparison is really cool. Even though I say it's different than the Explorers, but it's a lot like that compare to production that we've had in some of the other Explorers. It's kind of a shared technology, lack of a better word.
Yeah, so you could actually run that metadata comparison across the entire tenant, right?
I believe so. I'm going to do just to Violet because I know that Violet is open to ticket, for example, so she can't log in. It's
Okay.
broken or mail's, boogered up. What's happening right here, this beautifully mesmerizing spinning green circle situation, is that the Entra ID backup engine is comparing with what is live in Entra ID. And by the way, I've never ran this restore. Okay, so it's one of those things that it is going back for the first time. I did a backup right before the show, right before that change, but we're taking a look at everything associated with Violet's account compared to what we have under management in the repository. And it's going to come back with a couple of things. Now I'll show you one thing right here, restore point. Yeah, today that would have been 9:01 East Coast time. So that would have been first thing this morning. Here we go. Display name. You can see that some assignments changed by that name change. And basically there were no changes. There was a change here. There is the change here, and you'll see that the N is not there, right? And you can also look at latest restore point, production record, and the selected restore point. So there's actually 3 points in time. That's actually an important thing to highlight right there. All right.
This will identify if anything's been deleted as well, right?
Exactly. I could delete the user as well, but then I get just a different type of look. But just changing the name is just one of the scenarios you could do. So I like this. Now I could go and take all of this and restore just this stuff, right? Let's do it. I'm going to log in. Now I might have to, let's see if I have to log in. Okay. So I am going to have to copy this code. I'm going to do this off screen just so nobody steals my session here. Let me, I got to type. I can't talk and type at the same time. You ever have to do a password and try to talk at the same time, Kirsten? It's kind of hard.
Yeah, it is really hard. I agree. So maybe since you're trying to do some of this stuff, what about like some organizations that have to, make sure that their data is stored in a certain location? Is that possible within this backup job?
The backup, yes, kind of. It is for the audit logs. The actual tenant goes to the Postgres database. Now, during the restore, this is probably a one-timer. So I'm driving this restore the first time. The first time you do it, you're going to get one of those. Same thing when you actually add the tenant, and that's why I didn't do it, because I wanted you to see this. So now it's authenticated. This screen is changed, and Tech Bites is fun. So that is cool, and we're going to just rock this out. Now I'm going to let this go, and basically we're going to correct what I broke at the start of the show. Now, if you've ever used Veeam, this kind of sequential restore, it looks real familiar. Again, this is a different interface for the restore engine, but the sequencing and things like that, that's pretty consistent. Yeah, we're getting close on the show. Thank you for the update from Jeffrey. I got to give a shout out to Thabang on Facebook. I'm looking at LinkedIn, but he says, sorry, he or she, Thabang says, Veeam is my favorite backup software. Hey, man, you warmed my heart with that. Thank you so much. That's fantastic. And Kirsten and I agree. It's our favorite too. All right, enough mushiness. Valentine's Day is next month. Kirsten, that looks good. Pretty
Yep,
quick.
success.
Yeah, backup for show.
What is now? What does
Recover
it
for
look
go.
like in the Entra ID admin
Oh,
center?
all right. Okay, now I didn't restore. I'm going to have to go back to Violet's account it kind of refreshes automatically, but I'm going to go back in. I should have left it open and refreshed it, but you can see no Violent, just Violet.
Wow, it's like magic.
It's like a recovery, yo. And I'll double check these areas we changed. No issues here either. Violet, 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 not Violent. Awesome. All right, I got two things I want to highlight. Well, number one, before we wrap, I want to draw everyone's attention to randylee.com, and Randy's on the show. Big time friend of Veeam's. Randy Lee's got a cool blog post that he wrote up about the differences between Active Directory and Entra ID. And you know, Randy gave me a field report last week that there were people in Las Vegas getting coffees like this. And I just was like, what the heck is going on in Las Vegas? Ask me about it sometime and I'll tell you what's up. But anyways, big shout out to randylee.com for that. And when it comes to this capability, Kirsten, I would be remiss to say that, well, if I'm not protecting Entra ID, what do I do? Well, I think it's pretty easy to try this in your own environment, yeah?
Yeah, there is a free trial, am I right?
You
And
are
that's
right.
what's great. You can try it out and see how it works for you. And you know, if you already use Veeam, as Rick just demonstrated, it's a very familiar user interface that you are already familiar with. It's not like you have to learn something that's completely different. So give it a go and you can start protecting it in no time.
Yep. One ask if Felicia could push out the link if you're interested in trialing Veeam backup and replication. And by the way, I have Hyper-V, Nutanix, Proxmox File, Windows, VMware, all that other stuff in there. But you can use it just for Entra ID as well. Or if you already have a Veeam deployment, there's no additional license cost to have a separate Veeam server for Entra if you want to do it in the cloud only or something like that. So good stuff. Check it out. Felicia should be pushing out that link momentarily. Thank you, Felicia, for that. And let's see here, a couple other things to promote as we wrap up the show. Number one, we are so close, Kirsten, so close. We can go back to the screen share just for a second. Kirsten, what's this big thing coming up in April?
Yeah, so we have Veeam in April the 21st through the 23rd. We are going to San Diego for the first time, so it will be very nice, warm, and sunny, hopefully. And, you know, Veeam is just a really great event to learn more about Veeam. You're going to hear from Veeam experts. You could hear from product management, find out what's coming and how some of our solution can, you know, can combat those business challenges that you might be facing today within your environment. And we have the early rate registration. You still have some time left to register now. Look how affordable that price is. I mean, that's not even a Dyson vacuum. I mean, come on. I mean, it's the truth. You know it's the truth. So this is the perfect opportunity for you to register and secure your spot at Veeam. And I'm sure it's going to be one that you don't want to miss.
Yeah, good stuff. Thank you, Kirsten. And like, I'm thinking you're getting a little bit of Veeam envy. You had a, legit excusable personal situation last year. Couldn't make it. Happy to get you back this year. And by the way, we call it early rate because we sell tickets to people, not to birds. It's not an early bird price. All right. Wrapping up, a couple special announcements next Tuesday on the special Tech Bites episode. Moved from a Thursday to a Tuesday. We have Atomic Data, service provider partner of Veeam. We are going to talk about best practices for backup. I love it. Keeping data safe from bad things is what we're in the business of doing. All right, Kirsten, thank you so much for rocking out Tech Bites with me today.
Yeah, of course.
All right, and a big thank you to Felicia and Jeffrey rocking it in the barn cave. I could not do it without the two of you. Thanks for watching, everyone. Have a great rest of your week.